There's a very thin, invisible line between admiration and something else. Most of us know when to stop. We know that a brief meeting is just that, a moment in time. But for some, that moment refuses to end. It plays on a loop. It distorts reality until the only logical conclusion is something no one can stop. Tonight, we look at 3 true stories of people who simply refused to let go. I've worked as a corporate consultant for about 10 years. I travel to mid-sized cities, stay in generic hotels that all smell like lemon polish, and shake thousands of hands. It's part of the job. You smile, you take the selfie, you move on. That's what I did with a woman I'll call Sam. She attended one of my workshops in a quiet suburb outside of Chicago. Afterward, she waited in line, asked for a photo, and told me the seminar changed her perspective on things. It took less than 60 seconds. I thanked her, she left, and I didn't think about her again. For 2 years, life was quiet, normal. It began with a video testimonial she posted online. It was glowing, almost too enthusiastic, but harmless. But when I didn't respond personally within 24 hours, the tone shifted. Almost overnight, the admiration curdled into something unrecognizable. She started posting on every platform I had, hundreds of times a day. But these weren't just insults. They were detailed, fabricated stories. She told her followers that I was manipulative. She claimed I had promised her a job, a life, a relationship. Then it got darker. I woke up one Tuesday to a barrage of tags. She had posted photos of her own broken windows, claiming I had been there the night before. She posted a picture of her deceased cat, claiming I was the reason it was gone. I was thousands of miles away. I had never been to her house. I didn't even know her last name until the lawyers got involved. But to the internet, her hysteria looked like truth. I remember sitting in my kitchen, the blue light of my phone illuminating the dark room, watching my reputation dissolve in real time. I realized that a 60-second interaction 2 years ago had created a ghost that was now haunting every aspect of my life. And the worst part? The police said that until she actually showed up at my door, there was nothing they could do. So, I waited. That phrase, "until she shows up," circled my mind like a vulture. I installed cameras that same afternoon. I double-checked every lock. I stopped sleeping. 3 days later, the online barrage stopped. The silence was heavier than the noise. I was sitting in the living room, lights off, staring at the driveway feed on my tablet. It was 3:17 a.m. when the motion sensor light flooded the porch. My heart stopped. I looked at the screen. Standing there was Sam. She crept toward the door, reaching for the handle with a practiced familiarity. It wasn't her first time here. She knew exactly how to twist the knob without making a sound. But this time, the new camera setup caught her. The little red recording light blinked. She froze. Her eyes went wide, locking onto the lens. For the first time, the observer became the observed. The realization hit her face. She wasn't in control anymore. She looked terrified. She didn't scream. She didn't bang on the glass. She spun around and sprinted back toward the street, vanishing into the dark. But I had it. The proof. High-definition video of her trespassing and attempting to enter my home. The police finally had what they needed. Within 24 hours, the police acted. A restraining order was issued immediately, and the footage served as the physical evidence required to clear my name. The lie she spun dissolved under the weight of the truth. I didn't move. I refused to let her take my home from me too. But even now, with the legal papers filed and the silence returned to the internet, I still wake up at 3:17 a.m. I still check the feed. The nightmare is technically over, but the feeling of being watched, that never really goes away. Living in a high-end gated community in the hills creates a false sense of security. You have the perimeter walls, the cameras, the distance from the street. You feel untouchable. I felt that way too. My name is Elena. I'm an architect, and privacy was something I thought I had earned. It was late, 2023. I remember that night. A heavy fog had rolled in off the coast. The house was supposed to be silent. I was asleep when a loud rhythmic banging woke me up. It wasn't the wind. It was the sound of metal being forced, strain against structure. I got up, panicked, and looked down the long hallway toward the foyer. That's when I saw him. A dark figure, standing inside my home. He wasn't rushing to grab the TV. He wasn't looking for jewelry. He was just standing there holding a notebook, looking up at the ceiling like he was admiring a cathedral. I ran and locked myself in my bedroom, huddled in the far corner of the walk-in closet, and dialed 911. While I whispered to the operator, I could hear his footsteps moving slowly up the stairs. Heavy. He wasn't rushing. He was exploring. When the police arrived, they arrested the man. He had scaled a security fence that was supposed to be impossible to climb. But what they found in his possession is what still keeps me up at night. They found items that showed his intent went far beyond trespassing. Among them, a concealed weapon. But more disturbing was the notebook. It was filled with letters, pages and pages of them. Letters that described an intimate connection with me that didn't exist. He hadn't come to rob me. He believed he was there to continue a relationship, to finish a conversation that, in his mind, had been going on for years. I eventually found out who he was. He worked at a coffee shop near my office, and I used to go there often. He always seemed friendly, harmless, and I never had any reason to question it. My office wasn't anywhere near my home, so at some point, he either figured out where I lived or followed me there. Maybe more than once. I still live in that house. The gates are still there and the cameras still work. But whatever illusion of safety I had that night never came back. He didn't break in to steal something. He broke in because, somewhere in his mind, I already belonged to him. We all have that one coworker who is a little too quiet, the one who stares a little too long at the coffee machine. For my sister Jessica, working at a tech firm in the Pacific Northwest, that coworker was Mark. She doesn't like to talk about what happened, so I'm telling this the way it was told to me. Mark was harmless, or so she thought. He was the IT guy who fixed her laptop and always remembered her birthday. One rainy Tuesday, Mark didn't show up for work. Jessica, being the team lead, needed a critical file from his home server to close a deal. Since he lived just a few blocks away in an older apartment complex, she decided to drive over and pick it up herself. She knocked. No answer. The door was unlocked, which was odd for someone as meticulous as Mark. She pushed it open, calling his name. The apartment was silent. It smelled stale, like old paper, dust, and something chemical. She walked down the hallway to where she thought his home office might be, expecting to see a desk and a computer monitor. Instead, she saw herself. Every inch of the wall was covered. Photos of my sister walking to her car, photos of her eating lunch in the break room, photos of her taken through the window of her own apartment from across the street. There were candles, some burned down to the wax, arranged on a small table in the center of the room, like an altar. In the middle of the table was a coffee cup she had thrown away weeks ago. But the detail that made her run was the photos themselves. In every single image, he had taken a black marker and carefully, methodically, obliterated her face. He hadn't just scribbled on them. He had pressed so hard the paper was torn. It wasn't a shrine of love. It was a rehearsal, a visual promise of what he wanted to do to her identity. She later told me that before running away, she documented what she found. Then she reported it to her company and told them she would be contacting the police as well. But there was little that could be done. Mark disappeared, no explanation, and he has remained missing ever since, for just over 2 years now. To this day, there are parts of that story she refuses to revisit. Some spaces, once violated, never feel safe again. We interact with people every day. We smile, we wave, we hold the door. We assume they see the world the same way we do. But sometimes, behind a quiet smile, there is a narrative being written that we know nothing about, until the warning signs become impossible to ignore. Stay safe, and be careful who you let into your life.